Hey, thanks so much for finding the video. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. And be sure to leave your comment. We love to interact. Enjoy the video. I want to start, though, with something that Ed Orgeron said today that was probably to many nondescript, but was actually very, very, very telling about the state of leadership and culture within the LSU program, where they were and where they're going. And I don't typically like abstract topics and conversations like that. I like things that are more concrete. But that abstract conversation and everything that happened away from the field a year ago is what bled onto the field and led to that disastrous season, which they sort of started to recoup late and have used that as a springboard into a very, very exciting offseason. I've said here before that last summer, when our country was going through a massive era of social and racial unrest, that bled into almost everything in our culture, including sports, and yes, including LSU football. The very visible head of that was when the football team went marching to the president's office without their head coach. And we have had this conversation quite a bit about how much of a disconnect there was between the LSU football roster, the players, and the coaches, and even division among the coaching staff. And if you didn't want to believe that was true, all you needed to do was then look at the product they put on the field to understand that was not one team, one heartbeat. That was a fractured organization last year. From the march to the president's office to what obviously happened on the field with so many breakdowns and the lack of communication and guys holding their hands in the air, coaches at each other on the sideline, the opt-outs. With the benefit of hindsight now, you can look back and say, yeah, that was a mess. Ed Orgeron was a guest Tuesday morning on Off the Bench with T-Bob and Hester, as he has been on Off the Bench every Tuesday for a long time. And he talked about the leadership on the team. And in part because a week ago, and Ed alludes this, you'll hear this in the soundbite, he talks about the Leadership Council going to dinner last week, which they did, and he posted a picture of it on his Twitter account. Anyway, listen to what Ed Orgeron said about the leadership on this team. Listen, with the backdrop I just painted for you, listen very carefully to what Ed said this morning.
We took the leadership committee out, went out to a nice restaurant in town. They were all dressed up, looked good. We had a big table. There was about 20 of us. A couple coaches came. And, man, we sat down and we ate. I believe me, they ate because I paid the bill. I know they ate well. But, it was just nice to go to a relaxed setting, let them talk, listen to them, get closer to them this year, at the beginning of the year, in the spring, instead of waiting to the season, develop leadership throughout the spring. But I think more or less the first thing for me to do is for our coaches and for me to get closer to our team and invest in our team so nothing can ever come in between us. I think that's the number one thing that we're going to get accomplished right now. But, you look at on offense, I'm going to tell you now, Myles Brennan's been phenomenal.
Yeah.
And yesterday we just had an academic meeting. You look at Austin Deculus, Liam Shanahan, who we never have to worry about academics coming from Harvard. I know that. And are doing phenomenal in the classroom. They got all A's and B's, and that's leadership. Although they came back for the last year, they want to do everything right. So those guys are leading. I'm going to tell you what, on defense, it was good to see the kids in a relaxed atmosphere. Andre Anthony is clearly the lead on defense. Clearly.
Wow.
But Ali Gay's coming along. Damone Clark. They're looking at Damone Clark a bunch. Those guys are showing tremendous leadership skills, in my opinion, right now. And young guys that are coming along are B.J. Ojulari and Max Johnson. Those guys lead by example.
That's the full answer. Did you hear the part where he says, we need to be closer to them this year? Where he says, it's on the coaches and on me to be closer to this team. Nothing will come between us. Listen again. This was Ed Orgeron this morning with the context of what I provided to start.
And for me, to get closer to our team and invest in our team so nothing can ever come in between us. I think that's
Boom.
number.
Nothing can ever come in between us. That doesn't sound like a guy who normally is one team, one heartbeat, all that whole mantra. That's a guy trying to salvage something that was broken. He's telling you. And then the other very, very important part, and Hester asked this question, I think it might have been the last question of the interview, was about the success they had at the end of the season, beating Florida and Ole Miss. And I'm telling you, if this thing gets righted, we will look back to the kid Marco Wilson from Florida throwing that shoe as a fulcrum moment in LSU football history. Listen to what Ed Orgeron said about the success at the end of the season.
The whole atmosphere around here has changed. The atmosphere in the locker room, the atmosphere upstairs, the feeling of confidence. The Tigers are back. Hey, look what these young guys have done. There's a lot of young guys that have grown up. You can see the way they're walking around. Tommy Moffitt says the weight room has been phenomenal. The fourth quarter is going to be phenomenal. Yesterday, there was an energy in the indoor practice facility that everybody knows. Even Sam Nader said, man, these guys love football. So there's just a different attitude among our football team, and those two wins and our recruiting class and the guys coming back and the new coaching staff, I think it's put all that together.
If LSU would have lost to Florida and subsequently Ole Miss, they would have been 3-7. Jamar Chase opted out. Apuaika opted out. He was transferring. Tyler Shelvin had already opted out. Terrace Marshall comes back and opt out. Eric Gilbert opts out. If you remember, what people around were going, what the hell is happening? That was the feeling that week when Gilbert opted out. I'm telling you right now, and this is not something I'm guessing at, this is conversations had within people in that program, players, family members of players. There was a feeling like the ship is sinking, and I'm telling you, had they lost to Florida, lost to Ole Miss, been 3-7, you don't get those veteran guys to return. They transfer or they go pro. And a lot of your young, talented guys would have transferred as well. And you know some of the names already. Beating Florida, beating Ole Miss, gave LSU's staff the springboard to say, hey, look, we are going in the right direction. Stay with us. And the veteran players bought in. And they've signed a top 5 recruiting class. And they got a great head start on 2022. And what Ed Orgeron didn't turn was then, he made coaching staff changes that he needed to be more relatable to his players. He hired minority coaches. He hired younger coaches. The average age of the assistants he hired is 38 years old. Replace guys where the average age was 60 years old. It's not really that hard to see what was happening, how they identified it, how they've tried to fix it. Will it work is the question. But Ed Orgeron told you this morning what had happened and what they're doing to fix it. Maybe not as outwardly and abundantly and clearly as I've said it here now. But he told you that earlier today. And it takes a lot of self-awareness to get to that point. And my hope is that leads them to success on the field again. Because it's a year where it's pivotal. You can't go 5-5 around here. And now you've got 20 starters back and all this experience and all this talent and all this feel-good. And the schedule rotates in your favor with Florida and Auburn and A&M all coming to Baton Rouge. You got UCLA, which is an unranked non-conference opponent. Like, You should be in the New Year's Six this year. And if you're not, this is a major what-if type season. Huge offseason for LSU football. There's just no way to overstate it. Really interesting. I mean, there wasn't a lot of meat on the bone in the interview this morning, in large part because they're not doing much. I mean, they're lifting weights. There's only so much you can do. But Ed was very revealing as far as leadership, fractions within the team, and what they're doing to right it, and the importance of the success they had late in keeping this thing together. And here's hoping that it leads them to great things in 2021. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.